Hi, this is Therion Major from Dark Machine Nation, and you're watching Industrial Music Culture. What was my life like growing up? Well, I'll be the first to say I had a fairly privileged upbringing. Suburban, working class, both parents in the house, both parent and married. Um, Without oversharing, my father was a minister, and so I grew up very, very religious. The fact that my first two albums under this project's name were intensely either anti-theist or satanic, that definitely came from a particular personal place. And even though I've moved on from those particular lyrical themes, I think that was something that I had to get out for cathartic purposes. As far as my personality goes, my upbringing has made me fairly outgoing and pretty chill. I like to hang out, have a good time, and be nice. Um, anyway, I think that's all I'll say about that. Um, how old were you when you got into industrial music? I really should have thought about this question before I got to it, but um, I'd like to say it was probably somewhere like late in high school or early on in college. I discovered industrial metal, industrial death metal, from a band called the Berserker. No, the Berserker was headed by Luke Kinney, who I think has gone back to running the Berserker as a solo project. I'm not sure he's going to do any new material, but it started off as a solo speedcore project, speedcore, hardcore techno, gabber, that kind of sound. I actually discovered all of that before I discovered industrial music, and that led me to industrial music and to the sound that I produce now. A little later on in college, I discovered electro-industrial and EBM, all those sorts of things. And a lot later on, around about 2010, because I was pretty sheltered, and I stayed sheltered for most of my life until about the age of 26, was when I started to sneak out of the church and their traditional teachings, and I started going to rock shows, metal shows, goth night. I found my way into some noise shows, and I started going to raves, and that's where I discovered electronic music, and it's both its mainstream and its extreme forms, and that's also where I discovered metal, and well, got deep into metal. I had already discovered it before that, but yeah. So that'll be at different times. I discovered industrial music at different levels, but all things considered, I'm a pretty late bloomer. I've heard people describe my sound as quote unquote real industrial. I'm not entirely sure what that means. I have no right to be a genre elitist because I came late to the genre. I found the sounds that I liked, and that's what I do. So I think that'll do for that one. Oh, this one's easy. I was about 12 years old. I started making music on an old like Windows 95, and I had this PC, and I would make tracks using the MIDI sounds, the sound card built right into the computer, all those little bleeps and bloops, and I would make sounds with that, and that was how I just learned how to put melodies together and how to make beats, and it's about as rudimentary as you can get, but it was a start, and I appreciate it. From there, I went on to playing around with one of those like old Radio Shack arranger keyboards, and later on, around about 2004, 2005, I started producing on a Mac using GarageBand, and then I moved on to what I use now. Well, this is a long ass list, and to be fair, from the beginning, it was more electronic dance music or rave music, techno, whatever you want to call it. That's what inspired me to start producing. So I don't have a lot of industrial musicians on this list, but they made it there eventually. So there's a hardcore techno and also a breakbeat producer. He goes by the name Omar Santana. He's a bit of a classic in the rave scene. He's still active, even though there are other artists that are a lot more popular. He's the one. His productions I caught on to very early, right around the years where he was putting out these DJ mixes called Hardcore for the Headstrong. And that's where I discovered gabber and hardcore techno, and I loved that distorted kick sound. And that's still a sound that I stick with now. Um, but yeah, so it was Omar Santana, the Berserker, as I mentioned earlier, Luke Kinney. He had that distorted kick sound, but he used it in death metal, and that was an amazing sound to me. Still is. Sometimes I go back and listen to those old recordings, and to me they still hold up, just as pieces of extreme music. I love them. Um, Aside from that, I tend to be inspired by a lot of techno producers these days. Emily Lenz, DJ Diesel Boy. He's a drum and bass producer and DJ. He's an excellent DJ, and he's a fairly wholesome guy as well. If you follow him on social media, um, the link between Omar Santana and DJ Diesel Boy is really just they were two producers or DJs that helped me to know that electronic music can be hard as nails. And that changed my thinking, from just, like trance or whatever, which I still like and still listen to. But it's like you can sit down on a computer and make something brutal and aggressive, and people will respond to it in the exact same ways as aggressive music, and it'll help them get out their frustrations or whatever they want to do when they're listening to this stuff. I got started with Dark Machine Nation in 2014. I had a project before that, which was called the Takeover Project. The only difference between the two of those is that the Takeover Project used a lot more melody, and the Takeover Project was a more genre-bending kind of breakbeat, gabber kind of sound. I don't exactly know how to describe it, which is why it was difficult to market. So I didn't make a lot of album sales back then, but I was selling albums. All things considered, I didn't check, but I do believe I have about 3 or 4 albums under the name Takeover Project before I got on to Dark Machine Nation. Some of those productions still make it into some of the Dark Machine Nation mixes when I play live. So you come out and hear me play live, you'll hear that now unreleased material, because I no longer have any of the Takeover Project material online. It's just Dark Machine Nation now. But the project started when I was kind of going through a dark phase, and I wanted a new project to express that. And I wanted to express my departure from tradition, from religion, from the church, and all of that. I wanted to go off on my own and find my own way through things. Sometimes when you're trying to find your way, you literally can't see your way out of it, and it literally feels, well, it's a dark, from a spiritual perspective, and if you let me talk long enough, I'll get into that weird zone between psychological and spiritual. But Dark Machine Nation started off to express that darker side of the mind, and also much darker sounds. I was also deeply into modern Satanism at the time. I'm not anymore. I don't have any animosity towards that philosophy. It just doesn't serve me anymore. So I don't claim any sort of label. I'm essentially a non-believer, but I don't claim anything now. But yeah, back then, a critical aspect of Dark Machine Nation was that satanic lyrical focus, which made its way into a lot of my music. There was some anti-theism types of themes back then. Looking back on it, again, I was kind of obsessed with that as a theme, but it was a phase, and we all have them, and I've moved on from that. I don't regret anything that I've made, and I still play some of those tracks in my sets now. So, it is what it is, what it is, and it was what it was. And I'm something else now. I'm going to keep moving forward as well. Well, let's see here. I've never been on tour before, but I'll say my first time on stage was in Washington, D.C. Mark Hardware, big shout out to Mark Hardware for getting me started. Mark Hardware from Club Renoise Radio went out on a limb and invited me out to Washington, D.C., and that was my first gig, and that was with my Takeover project, that old project of mine. So, I mean, we both took a chance with each other. Like, I'd never met him anywhere except Facebook, and he didn't know me. He'd never heard me play live before. So I drove 8 hours to Washington, D.C. on the promise that I was going to be compensated for that time and gas. And he kept up his end of the bargain, and I got on stage and did my best, and I'm a lot better now. But I was nervous. I was kind of stoic. I was kind of statuesque. I didn't know how to jump around, like I didn't know how to let go like that. So I was kind of standing there like a nervous first-time DJ because, well, I kind of was a nervous first-time DJ. And yeah, of course I did some practice mixing, but nothing can prepare you for when you're actually on the stage in front of people. But I'll never forget, people actually danced. It was amazing to see people dancing to my material for the first time. So that was really good. My first album release, okay, in short, it was a complete flop. I mean, really, as far as like the time I put in versus how many people bought it, I wasn't sure how to promote it all. And the people who knew me well, both music producers and fans and friends, they did purchase it, but I mean, it wasn't a huge deal. It wasn't the amount of money that I could pay a huge bill with or buy any new gear, and it certainly wasn't getting me any spinning rims. So that really didn't take off. But I did learn how to promote. And again, I don't regret it because as a musician or a DJ or whatever you are, you're gonna play to an empty floor one day. You're gonna release an album and it's gonna flop. You're just gonna have, you're gonna have your failures. And this is how we learn, and this is how we grow. So I don't regret anything there. All right, so my first music video was actually for a continuous mix, which was just under an hour long, and it was called Mass Extinction Device. And that was under the Takeover Project moniker. And I literally took a camera and pointed it at a computer screen, and I opened up a window with all these different pictures and videos in it, and I pushed the arrow keys back and forth and did a slideshow in front of the camera. And the camera pointing at the computer screen made it look grainy and kind of like a lost transmission. So I kind of did a purposeful lo-fi video, kind of like this terrible webcam recording I'm taking right now. Sorry about that. Later on I'll have better equipment. Anyway, that's the first video I did, and that video has gotten almost 20,000 views in the last 6 years, which is nothing. But it was something, and I put it out there, so it was a start. Hopefully I'll have more music videos going forward. I've got a couple of people who said they are interested in doing videos for me. We'll see how that pans out, and that's all about that. So my latest album that's fully released is Pierce the Earth, and that one has been very, very successful. It is still being purchased to this day. Please check it out. It is my proudest work to date. That album was a culmination of all of my growth and development as a person up to that time. And in the same fashion, it represents all of my growth as an artist up to that time as well. So I've got a lot of layered percussion sounds. I have a metallic impact sound layered with a kick drum. Boom, 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 boom. And that is how I get that hard as nails sound on that album. I do that on a lot of tracks on that album, and it worked so well. I used a lot of sounds I'd never used before. There were a lot of, I mean, basically the entire album is 100% samples. Which is not to say that I took all the sounds from something or someone else. I base a lot of that on field recordings from my industrial work, from my construction work that I've done over the years. That also has inspired a lot of my music production. The sounds I hear from the machines. The only thing that didn't come from field recordings is the bass drum sounds. And usually I'll grab a bass drum sound from a sample pack and I'll stretch it out, trim it. I will reverse some parts to make it more granulated. I'll play with the EQ. I'll, like I said, trim it, wildly pitch it up or down. I just make it my own. But I like to start with that little, that foundation as a sound to start with. So that is, that's my proudest album to date. And I think my favorite single from that album, I mean, a lot of people talk about Days of Hate. I like that one. But Pierce the Earth, I think is a good one. That one lyrically just pulls together some of the best of my frame of mind at that time. That actually is a level of passion that I'd like to get back to. The year has not been kind, as many of you know. And that has taken its toll, but I do feel myself getting stronger. So when I said these lines, open up the sky, pierce the earth, call my enemies, send them to the core, serpents of iron, hatred of self, endless wanting, bury them well, horrors of mind, contempt for life, loss of the real, open my eyes, call to my fallen ancestors risen, mask of the hunter, grant me wisdom. It was a very spiritual album in that respect. And for that reason, I'm glad that I got away from my old philosophy. It opened up my mind to see that the real truth was in me and it didn't need a label. So I discovered that in the course of doing that album. So if you've listened to that album and you feel an energy from it, it's intentional. Do I have any pre-show rituals? Basically, I start pretending like I'm angry. I start like breathing really hard, and that just kind of like gets my blood pressure up, gets me prepared for not necessarily expressing frustration alone, but just for being intensely passionate beyond anything that I express at any other time. And I get on stage and I have this discriminating focus. There's nothing else on my mind. I've like taken those breaths. It's almost like a fiery rage meditation. I get on stage and I blast the crowd. Some of my hobbies outside of music, I'm just going to give this to you fast because I talk about this on all my social media platforms, but Gundam models, science fiction memorabilia collection. You might have been looking at this ED209. This is from RoboCop. Listen, I've got dozens and dozens of figures in addition to that. I've got RoboCop, I've got Star Trek, I've got Star Wars, I've got Independence Day, Starship Troopers, I've got Godzilla, all the different kaiju from that. I'm not going to pull them down for you to look at, but just follow me on social media and I'll never shut the hell up about it, I promise. But I love the build. I love robots. That's where I base the name of the music project from, Dark Machine Nation. It didn't come out of nowhere. I genuinely am obsessed with machinery. So the fact that I take jobs in manufacturing and construction is no accident. I didn't end up there. I chose those jobs. As far as that, I mean, there's a Gundam Wing poster behind me. I do like some anime. I don't watch a lot of anime. I like science fiction movies a little bit more. Favorite food or drink? This one's easy. No, it's not. I love food. I love all kinds of food. Burger and fries. I haven't met a burger and fries I didn't like. I'm pretty basic like that. Mexican food, Indian food, Asian food. You know, that includes Japanese, Chinese, Korean food, Thai food. Just take me to a nice restaurant, I will pick the first thing I see on the menu, and I'm really not that picky. I will like it, you know. I like flavor combinations of sweet and savory. But yeah, I like everything. I like almost everything. I love food. I love to eat. As far as my favorite drink, I'm big on Irish drinks for some reason. So I like Guinness. I like Irish cream. Um, and other than that, I like craft beer. Stouts are amazing. I hate IPAs though. Just keep them as far away from me as you can. But I love stouts. Every stout. Imperial stouts, Russian stouts, chocolate stouts, peanut butter stouts. I love it. I love those things. Do I have any pets and or family? Yeah, I definitely have family, but I live on my own, so they're not here. And I have pets, but they're over there, and they don't want to be disturbed. I've got cats. I know how it goes. You leave them lay. I've got two cats, boy named Buddy and a girl named Xena, and they're actually right over. Hey Xena. Hey Xena. Yeah. All right. No, they're not coming around. The one time I'm on camera talking about them, they don't want to come around. If I was doing some work or something, then they wouldn't leave me alone. But of course, whatever. Excision, who's a Canadian DJ. I'm big on EDM. Um, Vi- my friend Vivian hates it when I say it, but I actually really like dubstep. Okay, hate me all you want. I love dubstep. I think they make some of the coolest sounds in music, and some of those same sounds go into hardcore techno, and some of those same sounds go into industrial music. It's a matter of sound design and how you put the song together. Whatever you like, just have fun with that. But I'll be over here, headbanging. So my favorite out of town venue is Black Circle Brewery in Indianapolis, Indiana, and they have great sound, and they've always treated me very well, and they've got amazing beers. The fellow who works over there, Dustin, shout out to you, Dustin. Thanks for bringing me out there. Thanks for paying well. I appreciate you. Um, Everybody dances. Everybody's engaged. They love to have a good time. It's a great place to play. Um, but yeah, as far as local venues, I mean, I've played a few different places from Dayton to Cincinnati to Columbus. Other than that, there's the Mock Bee in Cincinnati. I'm not even sure that place still exists. But that place is literally a tunnel. It's a tunnel that used to be a storage facility, and they put the speakers on one end of the tunnel, and it fills the entire location. It's lined with 100% brick and stone, and the sound has nowhere to go. It's the best sound I've ever heard in a venue. It's crazy. It's overwhelming. It's great. I'm currently working on an album called Isolation. Actually, I'm going to call it the Isolation LP. Um, and that track, I started that production just before COVID-19 became a critical factor in all of our lives. And in my area, there was a fairly strict lockdown, but at the same time, I was an essential worker, so I kind of never stopped. That album was the catch-all for all of my thoughts and feelings that happened at the time and up to now. I'm still working on it. It does contain some of my hardest and most creative sounds to date, so do stay tuned for that one. Also, the album is, most of the tracks are a little bit faster than what I've done before, so I'm hyping it up just a little bit. Um, Not quite to speedcore level, but you'll still be able to dance to it. But I'm bringing out a lot more aggression these days. So stay tuned for that album. I've already put out some previews on my Instagram. I did a track called Isolation, which is the title track. I did another one called Reentry, and another one called Close-In Weapon System. I have a lot of people who are fans of my music, and they relate to the fact that I talk about a lot of mental health issues with a lot of war-like language, a lot of martial language. as if you're fighting a war in your own mind. A lot of people relate to that. So I'm just going to say this because a lot of people are going through a hard time right now. Listen, hold on, please. Like, hang in there because it gets better. There's going to be a day we're going to look back at this time in our lives and we'll be proud of ourselves for making it through. So please, if you're going through a hard time, keep going and reach out to someone for help. Please, don't be too tough or too independent to get help. I'm telling you that. And that is actually the critical theme of my newest album coming up, Isolation, the Isolation LP. It's actually not about isolation, it's about unity. As the album progresses, the battle that's being fought, it ends at the time when my lyrics describe myself reaching out to others. That's when I get better. I have never been able to get better all on my own. I have always needed help to get through difficult phases in my life. If I have a bad day, I can make it on my own. Okay, I can do that. But if I'm having a bad month or year, yeah, definitely reach out to someone. Like, keep trying, keep working at it, don't give up. And if you're thinking about starting in music production, just get started so you can go ahead and make shitty tracks. Just start making shitty tracks. They're gonna be shitty. It always is when you first get started. Start producing shitty tracks so that you can start getting better. Learn to play with your sounds. Learn to make your own sounds. Learn to master. Please learn to master. Or send it off to someone else who knows how to master. Whatever. I'm probably going to do that myself with this album coming up. I've done all my own mastering up to this point, and I think it's time to get help. So there's that. Thanks for watching, industrial people. This is Therion Major of Dark Machine Nation, and I'm here for you.